This is the interface right here for Document Controller, and as you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we're actually going to use the new Trimble Westminster facility as our demonstration material today. So for those of you on the webinar who may not be aware of it, Trimble just recently created or built a new research and development facility at our Westminster campus out in Colorado, and that's the data set that we're going to be able to take a look at with the information. So that's a little bit about the 3D right there. And that 3D information is coming from over here on the left-hand side of the screen. And this is the document register. So this is really where all the goodness of Document Controller comes in. Some things to kind of understand and know about this document register is that, first of all, we use a folder structure to organize it. So you can go in and you can create any breakdown that your project needs to store in here. So you could, for example, make 05 change orders, and you can store any information inside of here that you want. So in the examples that I have from our building, first I have some 2D documents organized in a folder structure. I've got floor plans here, notes, elevations, and then within each of those, I've got different versions of the documents that came out. So for our project, we had 3 different substantial design releases that needed to be viewed, and that was the 50% document, the 75% release, and then the 100% for construction release drawings. And we can actually build those versions right into the program here and organize them that way. There is a color-coded system in here, so if you notice in the background that things are changing green and red, and there are some cells that may be gray, for example, those are letting us know when we have a green cell in a column, that means that it's a new or original document. If we have 2 green cells next to each other, that would mean that the document remains unchanged from release to release. But as is the case in this example right here, we have a red cell next to it, meaning that something changed. So on this M001 page, between the 50% conceptual design and the 75% schematic design, I've got a clear indicator where it turns red, letting me know that something in that drawing changed and is going to need to be reviewed. Also on here, as we kind of get further along, you'll see that if we identify any changes and we create issues, we'll see the revision cloud appear right here on this cell. And it'll tell us whatever drawings have markups and revisions that we need to take a look at. So we have that in this example for the PDFs, and some of the other information that we have in here and have those same kind of capabilities for is the models. So down here you see in the input register that we have the different versions of the BIM models that came to us for the project, so a version 1 and 2 of the architectural and a version 1 of the structural. The circle in here indicates which version is active, and by active we mean that it's feeding the quantities for the model-based estimate and the model-based scheduling, and of course the layout as well. So this is same behavior for the model register as we see for the PDFs, and then you can even store things in here like photos. So if you want to track and link photos from your project in with all the rest of your information, you can load them here into Document Controller and you can store them along with everything else. So here we've got a couple pictures of the MEP going in from our project. In addition to that, you can even store other documents such as a changes report. So when you're doing constructability or coordination, it may be that you're tracking all the issues inside of the Vico database, but you want to create them in a format that you can share with other external participants, maybe subcontractors or field guys who aren't entirely comfortable with the Vico environment just yet. You can export the data that you're getting out of Vico and you could put it right into an Excel format, or you could put this into a PDF as well. But you're creating information out of Vico that can relate to people who aren't necessarily using Vico. So you don't have to install the program to get the benefit of the analysis that we're going to be able to do inside here by looking at the 2D and the 3D deliverables. And all that's coming right out from the Vico environment. So next I'll show you how we could add information to this document register if we wished. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add a subfolder for some new drawings. And I want to bring in the AV drawings, so the audio and video drawings. I create a subfolder under the 2D documents area. And within there, I just want to start to add some files. And when I add the files, it actually recognizes from earlier work that I've done. So when I loaded up the architectural and the structural and the mechanicals, it saw that I put in the versioning structure, and it can recognize and go directly to that versioning structure. So now I can go into the drawing folder where they're going to be stored at, and I can select the PDFs that I want to import, and I just hit OK. And then as soon as I hit the plus sign, you can start to see the document register populate. So here again is the audio video drawings 204 from the 50% design conceptual release. It's saying that this is a new document because it's a green cell. So if I want to populate that with the next version that we got, go here to the 75% schematics, grab them out of a different folder here, and we can build into Vico when these drawings were received and all the reporting information that you want to know about these drawings, which is really good for creating the document register so that everybody knows what is the latest and greatest drawing on the project. And I'll just go ahead and add in the third set as well. All right. So just like that, we've uploaded some brand new drawings, and we can see right away that there's been some changes in some of the drawings. So in this 201 drawing, there's been a revision from the 75% document to the 100% document. But in the 204, 203, and 202 drawings, there was no changes. So next, we'll probably want to go in and start to investigate those changes. And there's not usually a lot of content in the audio-video drawings. So we'll take a look at some of the other drawing types that you might see, like a structural drawing where we really want to see some of the differences. But first, I want to run a little filter here. And I want to select these two different drawings that I want to review. So I want to start to look at them on top of one another and see some changes between the different versions or the different floor plans. And you can see that I can do that here first in my slider mode. So I can come in and I get one version of the project on the left and one version of the project on the right. I can go through and change the colors of the display of each of the different drawing versions if that helps me out to make the issues more clear. And you can see as I toggle from left to right, it's showing me the changes that are happening from one release to the next release. Now by default, this toggle mode opens up in a vertical orientation, but if you want to check it out in a horizontal way, you can just hit that little button there, the toggle button on the right, and then you can start to toggle up and down to review the changes in your drawings. Now when you start to find a change like this, you might want to document it. So this is something, for example, this is just a quick and light change in the core area, but as the document controller, you might want to make sure that the guys doing the BIM model know that there's a new update in the core that needs to be reflected and modeled. So we could do that by going in and creating an issue. There's some alignment work that we'll do on these drawings here, and I'll show you in a minute where to do that alignment, but for the sake of consistency, I want to show you right here that if we found a misalignment that needed to be corrected, all we have to do to create a tracking issue is go here into the Issue Manager of Vico Office. And I'm going to start out, this is all of our, this could be our 3D flash detection issues, or this is now also our 2D design documentation issues that need to be tracked. And I'm going to go into the card view, and I can start out by creating a cloud. So if there's something that I want to convey to the rest of the team, maybe the field needs to know about this new shaft opening, and I've got it here that they've changed from the steps to sort of the sloped opening. I can go in here and I can create a cloud, and I can circle the area that I want to communicate about. And when I do that, right away it's going to create a new issue for me. So it's got a new tracking issue that I'm going to be able to communicate to the rest of my team. And here I could say design variance. And I can put all the details in there that I want to communicate to the rest of the, potentially the field guys or the estimators or the subcontractors, again, maybe who aren't in Vico Office but need to get the information out of the BIM model. I could tell them that the model and costs need updating. And a suggestion, if I wanted to, I could tell them to do it quickly. And anyone who's familiar with Vico Office knows that all of these different reporting fields right here that are located in Issue Manager are filterable fields that you can then run precise issue reporting scenarios out of. So if you want to send this to all the subcontractors after the meeting, you would just do it right out of there. So that's a little bit about the 2D analysis that you can do with Document Controller. One of the other pretty cool things about it is that you can also do change analysis between the different 3D models. So to take a look at that, I'm going to open up the 3D model folder that is created, or the BIM model folder that's created when we publish these models in. And as always, when these come in from Vico, you get all of the different construction caliber quantities that you're going to need to fill up your estimate and your schedule. And in this case, you can see that we've had the two updates, and that this second model version is going to be the one feeding our estimate and schedule. But first, I want to take a look at it for some change analysis. So before I go right into my estimate and updating the numbers that I sent to everyone, I want to know what's changed about this different model right here that I'm going to need to communicate with others on my team. So to do that, I go into the slider mode, and you can see here that I have my version 1 model on the right-hand side and my version 2 model on the left-hand side of the slider mode. So again, I'm comparing two different design models that have come to me so that I can communicate to the rest of my team the changes that need to be made. And to do that, I use this slider bar right here. And the slider bar, if you if we zoom in a little bit, let's take, we have a little playground out there at our Westminster facility where we get to keep some of our geospatial toys, our robotic total stations and the scanners and stuff that we go out there and play with, and we store them in this building right here. And using this slider mode right here, I can see that from one design release to another, the wall wrapping has been added, and it looks like they put a little bit of a roof on the new building over there. If I want to zoom in a little bit closer and I want to take a look at some of the other changes, I can go here and I can pan through and see, look, that we've got some new curtain wall elements that have been added up on the top to conceal the cooling towers. Now when I'm using this slider mode, I can move all the different faces of it. So if I want to look at it this way, if I want to look at it that way, and I can really start to get a flavor for what part of the project started to change. One of the other things that I might want to do is look at it in a highlight mode, so more of a visual rendering of what happened between the two different versions of the BIM model release. And so to get into the highlight mode, I go up here in my compare settings, and it shows me different colors for the elements that have changed or been modified in the new model release. So I can see here that these elements that are showing up in red, depending on what the highlight settings I've put in here are, the elements in red could be what's been deleted or what's been added. And you can change the translucency of all of those right here. We can apply that to the model to get it to display however we need. So depending on what order you click in them, if you want to compare version 3 to version 1, or if you want to compare version 1 to version 4, you can adjust however you'd like to have the visual display come back to you on all of the elements that have changed in the model. And so, for example, if I wanted to review just the deleted or newly added elements, I could do that, and I could uncheck the changed or modified elements, view it, and now I've got an immediate visual feedback about what the design team has been working on in this last design release. So if I need to communicate to the rest of my team, say my cost planners and my cost schedulers, about which part of the project I need updated, right away, as soon as I get the new design release, I don't have to spend a ton of time trying to figure out what has changed between the two. I can just look and see that everything displayed in green right now has been newly added in the last 2 weeks since I got the model update. So I'm going to want someone up working on the facade estimate, and clearly there's been some interior work to finish the reflected ceilings and the layout of all the MEP fixtures that are going to go in there. So now I know right away what I want to tell my estimators to start working on so that the estimate can be updated with the model straight away. And just like before, if you want to create an issue about this, so if that's something that you want to communicate to your estimator, and potentially they're not too comfortable with BIM, they're not used to getting into Vico just yet, and you need to tell them in something more familiar like a PDF or an Excel report format, you could again just create an issue out of this. So right here we can go to the Issue Manager. Here's that new shaft report that we had created earlier. I personally like this card view right here of the Issue Manager. It gives you a lot of room to make details and tell the people about what needs to be communicated. But you can go over here to the View and Markup tools, and again, you can add a cloud around it, and you can just create a quick screenshot to an estimator or a scheduler and tell them that this is all the new work. These are all the new walls that we need in the cost plan. Make sure you look at S202, which in this case is going to be located inside of Vico Office. So we've been able to add S202 into Vico Office, and then we can make a comment about it here, and you'll see in a moment when I use reference planes that we can map that drawing right onto a reference plane, and we'll have a hyperlink between this 3D model and the reference plane drawing. So again, just a really easy way to communicate the changes that have been made in just a couple minutes using a color-coded system, and Document Controller is creating the issues for us. So after that, so now we've seen that we've got the 2D drawings in the model, and we've got 2D drawings and we've got a 3D model. And it's probably time that we want to start to marry up those 2D drawings and that 3D model together. So I'll show you now how we can do that with a concept that's called reference planes. So first I'm going to go to take off my model, and I want to create a visual filter. So when I work with reference planes, I like to use just the slabs, for example. So through Takeoff Manager, I can go here and I can grab just my slab elements, As always, I've got all the quantities and everything that will be needed for my estimate, but right now I just want to select them. And I'm going to create a 3D visual filter for them. Isolate that. And now go back to my Manage Documents. I'm looking at just my 3D slabs right now, so these are the areas of the project that are pretty easy to work with because I'm going to match up the 2D drawings to the floor plans. And I'm going to do that right here through my reference plane palette that I'm opening up. And to create a reference plane, we've got a couple different options here. We've got horizontal, vertical, free, and reference planes based on the LBS Manager. So if your project has levels created in it from the architects or the engineers, which most of them do these days, you can automatically create a reference plane right at the levels that come from the design team. But in this case, I'll show everyone how to create a vertical reference plane. Oh, turn my display on there. I'm going to hide some of the other reference planes that I've already created. And I want to take, let's say, a cut through the section of the building that I'm going to want to map some drawings at. So I could find something like this slab, for example, this elevator shaft area, and choose to create a vertical reference plane through there to map the drawings to. And to do that, it asks me to pick a point from the 3D model. So I grab an endpoint here. And I can grab my second endpoint there. And now you can see that I've created a reference plane for where I might want to cut through and paste some drawings onto the model. I have some reference planes that I've already added from the LBS Manager. And I can see those reference planes where that information is coming from based on the LBS Manager display over here on the left. And again, the LBS Manager, for anyone who's new to Vico Office, is how we track our quantities by location. So we have here the different elevations for the project that separate the levels. And I went through here and I select on the LBS reference planes. And it created them right there at all of those locations for me. I could also create a new one from scratch just by selecting there in that upper icon, and I can give it a unique code. This one I might want to call horizontal reference plane 005 and give it a special name. So this could be the first floor plan, and it actually gives me the ability to define that reference plane right from the 3D model. So you can see when I went from the 3D model command there, when I go down now in the view, it gives me the ability to select right on the model for where I want to get that elevation. And now based on the first floor slab that I just selected, it's going to automatically assign a reference plane at 100 foot 2.5 inches. I now see that reference plane added over here in my reference palette. When I have this reference plane added in here, I can start to map a drawing to it. So because I added that at the first floor plan, I want to put, let's say, the first floor drawings on there that I would want to evaluate against the 3D model. So to do that, I can go here and click the Add Document, and when I open that dialog box, it's actually bringing me to all the stored documents from the register that I had shown you earlier. And you can go in here and you can select from which version of the drawing releases we want to map to this reference plane. So I'm going to add the 50% CD to it, and I want to align it with some slabs, so I'm going to run that filter here in the filter editor. And I want to hide just everything but the slabs. And there I go. And this reference plane that I created earlier can actually be used as a model capping tool as well. So I'm going to hide everything that's above that reference plane. And now I want to align and scale the drawing that has come in onto that reference plane. I've done that, so I've kind of preloaded some of the reference planes earlier with the drawings that have come in. And you can see here that on the level 2, we've mapped the S202 drawings from the 50%, the 75%, and the 100% for construction. And after that mapping, again, we can use here the section box, choose which version of the drawings that we want to display onto the 3D model, and then we can go in there and we can start to investigate very closely how well the 3D model is matching the 2D contract documents. Additionally, if we wanted to go in and use these 2D documents to help create our location breakdown structure, we now have that ability to map the 2D drawings to the location breakdown structure and use the column lines for quantity pours. And that is a great time savings